right, so let me also welcome new members. We have Kaina. I'm not sure, I asked before, how do you pronounce your first name?
You can pronounce however you want. In Portuguese, it's Kaina. But this sounds like a midway between the N and the M sound, so you can just call me Kai, K, something like that. It's fine.
All right. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So you reached out and you're a new member of the working group now. And also new today we have Trim. And,
hey guys, I know I've spoken to quite a few of you already. Some new faces, but yes, very nice to be here. I'm starting tomorrow. Actually, I'm gonna be the the product manager for Hydra. I'm coming from sidechains, and I've done a lot of things sort of around the ecosystem before that.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Thank you. And just for completeness, Kaina is also working on something related, which is Graph, which is also about payments and on layer 2 processing. I think it's mostly payments, or is it what kind of interactions?
It's mostly payments. In a nutshell, it's a variant of the David Chow Cash mechanism.
Yeah.
So we have semi-trusted delegators that send the transactions for you. They don't control the funds like they do in eCash, but it has the same properties of being anonymous and also for having a kind of like a group binding, meaning that transactions between the same group are anonymous, and transactions to the outside world, they come from the group and not from the person himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thanks. So quite related to, I think of payment channels between, well, it's quite open, right? So it's not a channel really, it's really like a mint, and you can give out or give around vouchers or something like that.
Yeah. Cash is kind of like voucher or gift cards. I'm still trying to get the best analogies, but I think gift card is a good one. It has a secret that as soon as you reveal that to the world, then it cannot be used anymore.
All right. Okay, so let's hope you get something interesting from this group discussions here too. And just as a quick reminder, works the following, right? So we have this repo containing all kinds of things. You should have added everyone who asked for being part of it. Obviously, the list of members is growing and it's listed here. I should be able to be part of this GitHub team. You have a GitHub account, and you should be able to modify anything in this repo. And this is also where we collect any outcomes, any meeting notes, that's as well. And we also post recordings. The topics for today, I've put that in the preparation. We did collect, or we can, of course, announce any agenda items ahead of time by providing a bit of like the should also be invited to these meetings, right? So if you're a member, by your email address, you should be able to edit this thing at any point in time. And we meet every about 2 weeks, depending on whether we have topics to discuss over. And yeah, so prepared topics is only 2, coming from myself. Again, very concrete about the Hydra project, which is one of the whys this group exists. So it's really governance of the Hydra project. Maybe the scope will expand at some point, we'll see. But also, and this is something I just confirmed with, reached out to Intersect the last couple of days. It's really to also identify potential projects, sub-projects, features, parts, things to be put on a bigger roadmap kind of owned by Intersect. So we can recommend things to be worked on. And this is taking shape. It's very early. You can think of it like Catalyst a bit, but maybe different. Discussing Catalyst stuff could also be part of this group. So, so that's why we basically, it's open still, and what exactly the outcome will be needed here. But and we have one spontaneous agenda item, which we'll come to in a bit. But I think Trim, right, as you just got involved, with intersect 2, there is the ask, hey, is there anything Hydra related which should become to the roadmap? And we'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
Okay, but first let's stick a bit concrete. Not so high in the sky, so far away. And I would like to kind of discuss, or maybe finish the discussion about what is Hydra 1, kind of show you briefly how we took your feedback in from last meeting onto the concrete project roadmap, and I'll talk about these maybe 2 concrete sub-bullets. And so let's start with that briefly. Mentioned in the monthly report of last week or so, in the meeting, we also mentioned that the project moved to Cardano scaling, by the way. So the Hydra project, still the old link, is now in this more open organization. Hopefully also more people can and will contribute to this and related items, which is all kinds of scaling research, development and research, and other fun projects too, like Hydra doing. Related things of Hydra, but also other stuff. And the project got moved. So does this roadmap view, which we are using every now and then to communicate with our users what we're building on and what we're building next. And there has been, now actually, let me use the old one just as the last thing. So I basically copied over. The structure is very the same. We just don't have all these released items. And what's changed in the last couple of days and week or 2 is the understanding of the Hydra head has limitations, known issues and limitations. We discussed them last 2 weeks ago. Notably, we discussed this co-designing closable snapshots of the phantom tokens. There was some additional conversations going on here. But ultimately, we went with the idea of, we basically looked at all the situations which we're covering and worked them into these concrete ideas. So this, by directly opening heads, which is only possible if we can add and remove stuff after it is kind of established, right? So changing the life cycle, basically, we avoided many problems. And basically don't need 1 or 2 of these. Actually, we don't need these 2 because of directly open heads. And the partial fan out, which is about, okay, once we agreed to something on the layer 2, and somebody needs to pull the emergency brake, which is closing the head, and whatever we close with is actually something you can always at least partially realize until layer 1, right? If you took care about only agreeing to things which you care are realizable on the layer. And so these 2 items would supersede. So this partial fan out will basically supersede these other 3 ideas here. And instead of building one or the other here, we would only need to build this, although this is a quite involved story and is actually quite related. So that's a discussion here too. Not actually related, but the approach is, I guess, the Midgard layer 2 also deals with like commitments using less accumulators, or it is not clear yet. I think they're using sparse worker trees, which we're also considering. So one or the other means to commit to a state which can later be processed and realized on a layer 1. So that's basically the changes. I wanted to, maybe it's a bit of a detailed question, but just run this by everyone here and also confirm that this is a way to go, and that the fact of overcoming these issues and limitations, for example, really that it shouldn't be the case that you can only do maximum 80 UTXOs of ADA only, right, in a head. That's something we want to definitely overcome before we can call this production grade version 1. And realizing that by doing these directly open heads or partial fan outs. Similar, like tokens which are minted would not be. Can you can you let the others in? Yeah, so token minting shouldn't also have a big problem for the head, right? So because sometimes you want to mint tokens in the layer 2, knowing that you can't, or depending on the minting policy, but you likely cannot make that a reality on the layer 1. But that would only affect the UTXO this token is held in, right? So if you have other stuff, for example, you have a main script, which is a script thread running in the layer 2, an auction maybe, right, Ilya? Maybe you have other things which are the actual bits, which are only not directly impacted by any tokens minted or whatever. Those UTXOs would be unaffected because if what they contain, the value, the datum, and the reference scripts, for example, if they are lawful, also the layer 1, you can realize it on the layer 1 exactly the same way. But you would need to take that part out and not try to realize everything because some parts are not compatible. Yeah, making that a reality is what we aim for between here and here. And we also incorporated earlier feedback of what we believe, what we asked here in this group is, what would you definitely need for making Hydra production great? And that was mentioned was easy to use from a browser-based wallet or SDK, and not always requiring a full Cardano node, so having a more lightweight operation possible. We went with like specifying that you can, instead of providing a Cardano node, you just provide a block first project ID. That's basically it. On a side note, incremental decommits is finished. We'll cut the release soon of 0.18, and we're all in incremental commits right now. It might be surprising to some of you, like you Kenya, that we're kind of doing this only now, right, and not at the beginning. But basically, the Hydra head project was always kind of driven by the research and the proven secure protocol of a Hydra state channel, which we now are only departing from piece by piece by adding these extensions, which have not been like originally discussed or at this depth at least in the original paper. So awesome. that kind of concludes the latest roadmap changes. And something which I would like to now discuss and ask into the room is, so we have like reasonable networking of good API SDK. We have no clear foot guns, right, in the protocol about what you can do and not do in layer 2, and all other things we have been doing so far too. Now, one thing, which is something which is on our radar too, which is I would like to get your feedback on, would be currently the Hydra node, just when it sees the transactions, it directly acknowledges this as the new truth of the chain, right? And also currently it is just connected to the Cardano node. That means we just follow the blocks. Now, of course, this is quite naive for any funds which could be spent otherwise, right? And in the past, this was not so much of a big problem because we knew that if something is in a Hydra head, it can only be spent with everyone's agreement. So if we see a UTXO spent, we know that that transaction can be included even if it is not on another fork rollback. But this is not so true anymore when we bring in funds incrementally. Right? So that might be a familiar thought with some of you. And now the question is, what would you expect? What kind of level of treatment or what kind of approach would you expect to be a production grade version 1, layer 2, like Hydra head, layer 2 mechanism like Hydra head have there? Is a block depth of 10 blocks, which is configurable, good enough? Any thoughts?
I'm incurring the risk of asking dumb questions.
That is not.
I have not gone too deep into Hydra yet, but from what I understood, it locks the funds on a UTXO, and this UTXO is transaction between all the nodes in the head, and all the nodes in the head need to sign that. At least for me, what I am thinking about doing for commits and decommits on my protocol is to use the certificate and push those certificates on the Hydra head itself to do it. So I certified. I remember that less than a month ago, you deployed a certified transaction of the Mitru. And what I'm planning to do is just use certified transactions to get the commits and decommits. So ideally, what I'm expecting for production grade is to be able to open and close channels, and also to, in the same way that it does in Lightning, to still not bandwidth, but value from channels to create the routing that is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I hear mithril certificates for the transactions which basically capture value into a layer 2, so that we're sure that this thing is available before we make it available to the users.
Yeah. And then you would not need to connect to the blockchain to do so.
This is true, right? So in fact, this is something that was demonstrated just last week by BlockFirst. They modified NAMI, which NAMI just shows this transaction is seen confirmed, right? Of a user spending transaction, whatever. And if you see it confirmed from BlockFirst, it's only BlockFirst's view onto the chain, right? Which might be inaccurate. But if you see a mithril certificate about it, right, it gives you a bit more of confidence, but not too much actually, because it's kind of lacking, and it's lagging behind too, and also depends on really the stake involved in the mithril signature. But that's something which could be there, right? But that would mean maybe on a realistic setting that we only get the mithril certificate after 1 hour, for example, and that kind of impacts the user experience, right?
Maybe. At least on Ethereum, most layer 2 are optimistic, and they have like 6 hours to a week before they release the funds on the L1. So I'd say, if it takes 1 hour, then it's fine, especially because I would prefer to be safe against rollbacks than I would to have fast commits.
Also, in practice, no one uses the native commitment schemes in layer 2s in Ethereum. So for instance, you do have this 1 week challenge period, but no one is waiting a week. What happens is there's third-party providers where someone says, okay, I want to leave the L2, then the third-party provider will pay them on the layer 1, and then the third-party provider will receive the funds in a week. And it would probably be the same thing with this certificate scheme, right? Instead of waiting an hour, you just ask to leave, someone pays you out on the layer 1, and then they get their funds in an hour.
Which works for fungible tokens only, right? Assets.
Right. Yep.
Or maybe it would work for any kind of data. Basically, an atomic swap between the layer 2 and the layer 1, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, that could be, right? So I'm not even sure if it's a big issue for taking things out in the Hydra head. I think more effective would be like adding things to the Hydra head, right? Because there, you want to definitely be sure that the thing you added to the head hasn't been spent otherwise, right? It comes from the vault and it cuts into this more defined environment, which is our layer 2, which is usually more defined than the layer 1.
Yeah.
I would check out, because IBC is using this mithril certificate system, and Midgard is using it as well. And yeah, I think it's like the best, that it's one of the cool advantages that Cardano has over other ecosystems in terms of trusted bridging. Because in general, it's a very hard problem, but something like that is a pretty unique solution.
So you would mean the IBC bridge and Midgard are planning to use it because it's not yet deployed on mainnet, right? So
Right. Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the code base, right, it's there.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
IBC's entire code base relies on Mithril certificates. So
yeah.
I mean, and likewise, it's been tested, right? They've been using this for months, so it works. But there are like security assumptions, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
One question. How many blocks do we usually roll back if we do? Because I would imagine once every 15 seconds, so less than 10 minutes. Someone would wait 10 minutes to do that. They do if they send a Bitcoin transaction.
There was a 40 block rollback a couple of months back, which kind of made some waves. So it's not common for it to be that many.
So 10 minutes. That would be the biggest one. So 20 minutes is 15 minutes is the block time for Bitcoin.
The block time is 20 seconds, right? Or basically that's the schedule. There's a big calculation of what you can do, right, in likelihood, and depending on adversary stake and what's the grinding power of the adversary stake. A bit of that discussion is what the Mithril team is currently doing and kind of finding out, because they need to ask themselves the same question, right? When do you certify a transaction or a block, right? Doesn't even matter there. When do we certify a block to be, or when we start voting on it, basically, that's what it does, right? And if you do it too early, some SPOs or some presentation designers would not see it at the same way, right? And it could be that you see not enough share, not enough stake on the same view of the blockchain that you can produce a certificate, right? So there is a bit of we need to find, but it's a good question. Maybe somebody keeps it. Does somebody know of a public record of like when somebody saw, or maybe it's an opinionated history always, right? If you run a node and your node sees these kinds of network reorganization, depending where on the planet your node is, right? I think in Europe and the US, you would see commonly like 1, 2, 3 block rollbacks on mainnet. It's also important how active the network is. And a 41, as Trim says, is quite rare. It's like once in a year, so I'm not sure. It's just subjective, but that's only true in Europe or in maybe North America, where the most nodes are operated on. If your node is in Philippines or so, you might see more rollbacks because you sometimes see the state of the world because an Asian block producer was active, then it's fine. But if it is now minted in North America, you usually see it reorganized.
And there is also a formula to calculate the probability of any sort of duration, and sort of you can use that to reverse engineer how what's your accepted probability range, and then it's probably this, and then you can use that to sort of infer how long should you wait to guarantee this.
So that is
another
calculator.
Go on, sorry.
But that calculator what I just linked here. Thanks for link, by the way, on IBC using Mithril. It's great to see, and actually I need to tell the others. I'm not sure if the Mithril team is aware of this active use, because we don't hear much from Sebastian Bode after they kind of announced and we talked on the Beta Fest. But yeah. So the thing I linked was really this curve here, which is this the likelihood of these rollbacks, right? And this one is logarithmic, inverse quadratic here, depending on really how much of the stake you have, right? And that's really depending on how much stake is the attacker, right? So for example, if one of the key used for producing blocks, which are rogue, basically, has delegated so and so much stake of the overall stake. That's the 2.5%, for example. Then there is also this grinding power, which is like kind of a hashing power you need to have to find find valid ERF points in order you can produce blocks which then will win in a block battle or in a chain selection. And you see the likelihood is already 0.1% at about 67 blocks here in this setting and so on. But this is only when somebody attacks it, right? So what we saw is a 40 block rollback, but maybe nobody really attacked it. It was just active on the network, right? And it was just active and busy. That's when it saw it reorganize at some point by 40 blocks.
And another thing that might be interesting is what if it puts the confirmation instead of just on the certificate, we also put that on smart contract itself. So to send the funds to the head, the user would have to provide a Merkle proof that they did something on the main chain smart contract, and nodes would delay signing until they saw the same route.
That's exactly the thing, right? It doesn't matter how you basically take it into your layer 2. There's multiple ways, of course. You can do advanced things, like you say, you need to prove on chain that you do the right thing. But it could also be that you claim that you spent this one UTXO, and this transaction, which basically spends this one UTXOs into layer 2. If you see it on the chain, it doesn't mean that this is all going to be in the history, right? Because it could be that you just had a partial or not the major chain view, and at the same time, that person, that user, was also maybe sending that same thing which you want to send to the L2 also to whatever, swap it out for some ASCII token or whatever, right? So another transaction just spends it at the same time, and depending on where the systems observe the chain, if it's reasonably far apart, and the network is or the network is attacked in that sense, right? You could produce a double spend, and then the problem is, if you have a kind of a non-probabilistic consensus on the layer 2, for example, in Hydra, we basically allow, as soon as it's available, we allow anyone to spend things there, right? And if the application relies on the spending on the layer 2, it will, you can basically go out shopping with that thing already, but in the end, if it never was brought into layer 2, you basically work on a deficit in the Hydra head. Just something you would like to avoid,
Just make sure. What I meant is that the user deposits something on UTXO. This UTXO has a condition that it can only be spent by the key for the Hydra head, and then they would provide proof that they committed that, and nodes would check the chain and see, okay, I saw that, now I'm going to sign it. I saw this on like a reasonable confirmation delay, then I'm going to sign this transaction, and after everyone signed, then the fund is available.
I think all of this is trying to solve a problem that in practice doesn't matter, right? Like every Ethereum layer 2 has a 1 week withdrawal period natively, right? And these layer 2s are like, it's like the gold standard for layer 2 and interoperability. So I don't think users will complain if they have to wait a week from the native scheme, right? Because naturally market, like, things will come in to fill that gap, like the third-party providers, etc.
Yeah, that's true. But I do like the Lightning scheme. You just put the funds there, the funds are there, and you're sending transactions that eventually going to be committed on chain. The main advantage is that we run the smart contracts on the layer 2 itself and not just try to let it rely on the layer 1 for it. So yeah, I just really like this and this behavior.
It's nice, but in practice, there's no economic activity in Lightning compared to like Optimism and layer 2s.
Yeah, I can rant for hours about that. Let's not go too far. It's too philosophical.
Okay. I mean, another scheme comes to mind.
Point is like, you should worry less about going in and out and worry more about what happens when you're inside, and the fact that you can go in and out without like a big fan out, right? Like incremental commits, incremental decommits, and then the fact that when you are in, everything is seamless. That's what really people care about, because the standard user experiences get in, and then, you know, now you have low fees and fast transactions, and you can do what you want, and you're happy.
And I agree 100% with Philip that waiting 1 week, people are not going to complain.
Yeah, if you can, if you're basically putting something in or taking something out, doesn't need to be in line of like a queue, right? And that basically you have like congestion on it. So that's something I'm actually aware of now, that we're going to do that, right? Say, okay, we require at least 1,000 block of information on anything, for example, bringing into the head, the increment transaction, which is taking things from layer 1 into layer 2. We currently don't allow multiple commits at the same time, which is another thing, right? The question is, should we write a ideally provably secure layer 1 protocol which does that? Or do we say in practice it is not happening because people will be maybe bringing in like a big bunch of stuff at one go, and then if others want to join, they will be given funds in layer 2 anyways on a swap from the layer 1 anyways. Like not using a native bridge in that sense, right? But rather using like an atomic swap into the head anyways.
Yeah.
Which then could be like just a orthogonal protocol, which is a kind of a deposit. Which reminds me, by the way, that we could also do the bringing something in, for example, differently, which says, yeah, you put something in a deposit, which is locks it up at least for a week or so, and you can take it out again after 1 week if it wasn't picked up by the layer 2, right? So you kind of say, yeah, I want to bring this in, but in the worst case, you are denied of access to it for like a couple days. And but the layer 2 had time to collect it within time, right? And then can do so even more optimistically, because it knows that only this head can collect it, right? So, and if there is a rollback, right, you just need to reapply the transaction. So if you had enough time to collect it, then you're good. You don't need to care about it.
Yeah, and even if that becomes a problem, then we can do what everyone's Ethereum is also doing, which is to have zero knowledge fraud proofs. So instead of a week, you do that in a day or an hour.
Yeah, we're not doing any zero knowledge, right? So the signing is still very basic, or the verification perspective.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm almost hurting myself from too much ZK.
Okay, I think that's bunchful feedback. That's good. It always helps in kind of getting this outside view and the reality check. You guys bring in and saying, yeah, that's all nice and well read, but in the end, it doesn't matter as long as you can have a nice UX. And I think that kind of concludes this agenda item for me. We'll want to have something about that in our V1 scope, which is missing in that regards, because I might be missing out in that regard. So let's see about that. I'll give any updates here or in other public meetings anyways about that. Now we could maybe move on to another agenda item. And maybe let's just, right, so I took notes what I wanted to talk about, maybe for the midterm, but maybe it just goes well into this direction of what you will bring in, right, Trent? So originally with the Meet working group, right? So kind of why does it exist? Kind of, yeah, to not only have IoT develop something which is for general good, but have basically get more insight, get more ownership and governance by the community or by anyone who's interested. But ideally, it could also be like something which is recommend stuff which can be like funded or which is important for the community next. that could take the shape of RFPs, of things which we can recommend to Intersect to put on their roadmap and then give out funding for, right? It could mean that we align each other on catalyst proposals in the future, help each other out, and so on. Besides the stuff, I think what you brought in already, Phil, in the past, we should come back to the standardization and SIG process, maybe on like interoperability and so on. But now concretely, which means if you talk about V1, it's also kind of the question, right? Would there be appetite or need for audit? And maybe what would that look like? Or is PlutoSex needed or Icon okay? Or is Icon needed, or do we need to Plutarch, somebody willing to audit it, or what's the direction there?
I think Plutus TX should be fine for most auditing firms. There's been a lot of audits done in Plutus TX.
Okay. Plinth? No, okay.
And now Plutus V3 actually has similar performance to the other languages. It used to be like at 60% performance difference. Now it's much closer.
Okay. That makes it, we have not yet upgraded our scripts to V3, but we're in the process of actually just right now doing that. So that sounds promising.
Philip, if I can just ask a quick follow-up on that, actually. Did they roll Plutonomy in? They've been promising to do that for a while. Is that why we got that boost?
Yeah, they haven't rolled the whole thing in, but they had like a checklist of optimizations they were bringing over, and they did a good chunk of them, and they did some other really cool stuff.
Optimizations was shown to be unsound at some point, so that would make sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also think in some ways it's a lot faster than the other languages in very niche cases, because it's the only one with some of product support right now, which means like it's natively compiling stuff to SOP. And if you use the same structures a lot, then yeah, you get a big efficiency benefit over Scott.
That's good. I also heard that the script context will become configurable to be either built-in data, SOP, or Scott included.
Yep.
So you could basically tweak whatever your...
Yeah, in fact, all types now you can define as data versions of them, which is nice. So you can choose to interact with any type as data, or you can choose to go to SOP or Scott or whatever.
So now it's fully compliant with System F Sigma, System F Omega, something like that.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's Haskell, but types and functions. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I do know from Jed's use case, when we went from version 2 Plutus to version 3, version 2, our throughput was like 22 orders in a transaction. Version 3 was 40. So it was just like a pretty significant, pretty huge EX unit gain from just changing compiler versions.
Let's prioritize up the Plutus V3 item in our backlog, because we've been just working on that, I guess, this week. Now we're excited. Yeah, maybe we can maybe use the last 15 minutes. Trent, we wanna, like, audit is maybe one aspect of what is not kind of necessarily, right, not kind of can come from IO, because we wrote that thing, so we want to have somebody else look over it. But the general question is, what is the future of Hydra, or like related projects, or what would you go?
Yeah. So basically, I think the main question is, we're moving into sort of a different structure, with Intersect and opening up of the Treasury and Voltaire and all of this stuff. So basically, what do we want to do in 2025? What is important? What should we prioritize? And sort of how should we? What kind of recommendations should we make for the roadmap of Hydra in particular for my case, for that we're going to be pitching to Intersect for the 2025 roadmap. Essentially, I have a lot of ideas. I have some approaches that I think might be interesting and worth pursuing. But my main goal is really to listen to all of the perspectives and sort of try and digest and sort of produce a coherent pitch out of all of the different perspectives, because you guys have perspectives that I don't have, and that I'm probably not going to be hearing from the team directly. So I really just want to open up the floor for any sort of input on what would you like to see in terms of development that we might conceivably pitch to Intersect to fund for 2025 and possibly beyond as well. The kind of the future of Hydra in a way. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts, comments, suggestions, anything like that, feel free to just raise your hand or just pitch in. Or
I would say that.
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say that at least for me, the roadmap that is following right now covers the most important stuff. Incremental commits and decommits are 100% the most important parts. But beyond that, it just feels like people need to know and use it. And I don't think that has been too much work on letting people know, at least in the past few years.
Yeah, so kind of encourage adoption, or are you thinking more in terms of education, or what sort of?
Developer education mostly. I think that people are going to use the features because they are evidently important. But let's say, if I didn't go far on the project that I am, I would not know how Hydra works. And it has been too confusing, the messaging, I think, especially with the whole Hydra for e-commerce thing, that at the beginning it was like, okay, it's going to be Lightning. Oh no, it's going to be on layer 2. No, it's something for e-commerce. But what kind of e-commerce do you commit funds and wait and then buy something?
Yeah. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. So some education, basically communication as well, right? Like making this more clear to people what it can do and sort of how you can use it, right? And build things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A recent example is that incremental decommits. There is only one blog post that mentioned it, like on the surface, and nothing else.
Yeah, that's fair. I think communicating this stuff publicly is something that I can definitely work on improving, making better. The incremental commits and decommits, that they're still pretty close to launch, right? So it's the actual feature is maybe not in really a 2025 roadmap item, but communication around these features is definitely one that could be useful.
It's too bad that George is not here today. I would like to ask him, right? So is Hydra Head V2, or basically like taking Hydra SOA into like full production grade, which is also state channels in the end, right? Is that the future? Should that be the recommendation, or kind of something pitched to Intersect? And then, of course, right, have everyone interested take a role in this, right? But or is it more that, I mean, we have other people here have probably better or different opinions, most likely because they have also different. I mean, Phil, you're involved in a couple of catalyst proposals, right? But is more the roll-up way, or kind of the sidechain way, the thing, like having this one layer 2 people can just go to and get their use case sped up. Is that the future?
Not in my opinion. Of course, it's a complete competitor from my product in a sense, but I think that Hydra should be the Lightning for Cardano. I think that blockchain is, or Bitcoin is the slowest blockchain there is, and people use Lightning as an explanation. Okay, this is how you can scale forever, and you kind of can't. So we don't have that limitation.
I just wanted to quickly ask a question, just regarding the documentation. Do you think like implemented examples is better, or like kind of technical blog posts or friendly blog posts? Like, what do you think is best?
Honestly, today I would say videos, like the one that Sebastian did with some heavy metal playing in the background. That kind of stuff should happen more. More like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is why this is cool, and someone like, okay, this is let's say a poker game where users can deposit funds to the bank and then put that on the tables themselves and implement that and show that in video.
More
I
exciting.
hate doing video too, but yeah.
Yeah, because that's yeah, there's some stuff, some interesting stuff. TikTok, exactly. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff definitely coming up there, and I do think that, you know, the I don't know if you're aware of the Doom demo that we're planning for Rare Evo, but that's going to be an interactive demo that everyone can sort of get their hands on. So I would say maybe even more interactive or even more sort of illustrative than just a video, because here you have an actual interactive demo and open source code and all of this stuff.
I don't sound bad, but it doesn't show what Hydra does in a sense. If the demo was, I mean, it's a very nice demo, and I think you guys should 100% do it. But one thing that I would like to see is, let's say, from a game, something where you go deposit funds with your Cardano wallet, and inside the game you can buy and sell items, and those items appear as NFTs on your Hydra wallet in a sense, and then you take those funds back to your main account and show that. I think that would be the perfect demo.
Yeah. So, but I suppose the question is, do you think demos of use cases and sort of, you know, minimum viable products in that way would be more useful than, you know, just kind of feature explanations, like, you know, a pure, okay, this is incremental decommits kind of video, because, you know, they both have a sort of yes, I have my opinion, so I'm just kind of curious about yours.
Yeah, for myself, I think the features are better, but I think that most people are not understanding yet what the goal of Hydra and what it allows. So yeah, you can show incremental decommits. That's going to be awesome for me, but not for someone that does not know Hydra yet or does not know what Hydra does.
I would like to. This discussion doesn't go far enough for me. I mean, all good, and I think more explanation, more exciting demonstrations, more to kind of capture interest in terms of to get adoption. That's of course right. Just in the nature of, okay, what is the Intersect currently collecting from working groups is really, okay, what should be like for Cardano roadmap, right? Which is a bit less individual proposals, more of a common thing. There's layers going to be on that, probably, most likely, right? So these kinds of like really big, huge items, what would that be? And it doesn't need to be called Hydra, right? And doesn't need to be that brand directly, right? So, but if there is going to be this big roadmap which kind of contains all these kind of network enhancements, right, and things of like kind of how the consensus should be changed on layer one, and how the networking thing should become more efficient, or what kind of new built-ins and primitives are needed for the smart contract thing. What is that big project or mid-sized project, basically, what you would rather maybe, which otherwise would be hard to kind of have in Catalyst, maybe because this might be less and less infrastructure, and more applications and bootstrapping. Whereas there is this long tail of development, right? Anything which is kind of started, I guess, right now, which is Hydra, New Graph, Subbit, I'm not sure, all these ideas which are on Catalyst, right? They're going to be nice experiments, but there's going to be this long tail of like making this production grade. And I'm not sure, Phil, are you covered with Midgard, right? Is this going to be just funded through, or is it, I mean, you need to build out a product out of this, otherwise it's not going to pay for itself, right? For example. And the question is, would that be like more in the interest of like the Cardano community as a whole, if it is going to be like something more core to the core roadmap, right? Or more part to the core roadmap, right? We could maybe have, if is this, is Midgard, what is it now? An optimistic rollup going to be like, right? Is that going to be the thing if it comes to scaling the most promising thing to build, or is it rather a CK rollup, or is it yet another sidechain? Although we don't have many which are kind of competitive Cardano transactions, right? So yeah, don't have layer 2 sidechains actually.
So yeah, you just sort of in practical terms, you're thinking of the team providing support for these scaling adventures in a way. So just in the case of Midgard, since you brought it up, that the pitch would be that the team would be supporting in the efforts of the development there.
I don't want to like, we're in very early stages here, right? So we kind of we got nominated that this working group should exist in the surroundings of Intersect, right? Intersect needs to prove itself still. There needs to be like this, is it really gathering the community voice in that sense, such that it can basically have a compelling roadmap be presented and then gone through a vote, which the treasury is going to be used funds for, like the continuity of, and for what, right? And as we are getting asked, the question is, what if we can wish for one thing, right? What is the proposal we might bring to the table, which might not be like part of the core roadmap after all, that can happen, right? And we just continue our lives with Catalyst proposals as we are doing right now. But what would that be like, something we can rally together for, right? Maybe, and that's the brainstorm I'd like to would like to have maybe in this round, which could be quite relevant now in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, because I do think that, you know, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, kind of.
Go on.
Because I do think that, you know, if we are going to be likely to get Hydra v1 sort of, you know, fully defined and released before end of year, then next year, you know, do we do Hydra v2? What is that? You know, is that a continuation, for example, of the efforts started by Hydrozoa? You know, I do think that there's a sort of supporting portfolio of tools and infrastructure surrounding this that could be really useful to have, and also improvements to the actual protocol itself in terms of performance primarily, right? Like even if it goes to sacrificing certain elements of security to really sort of push the performance, or, you know, making some sort of different kinds of trade-offs, right? Like moving a little bit away from the pure research perspective into something that is more pragmatic, but still, of course, safe to use, right? Defining something like that would be a big ticket item, right? Like, okay, we're pitching Hydra v2, for example. Something like that. Is that what you thought, Sebastian?
Yeah, anything. I would love to not we talk too much, but rather I would, like you said, I offer here really, right? What would this group be kind of endorsing, right? I mean, we will work out the proposal, of course, right? Because we are a bit like more asked to do so, right? But I'd rather work out a proposal which kind of goes in line with what this interested group of people here would like to see.
I would say that optimistic is the present. ZK is going to be the future. There is no denying it. And I think that most blockchains are going just to become extensions of ZK in a sense. So two things that I would really like to see. First one, as far as I know, there's no way to verify any kind of snark or stark proofs inside the contracts. That's something that is important for layer 2. And I think I would like to see Hydra more of a infrastructure where you build your layer 2 on top of, or your layer 3 on top of, and not exactly just the layer 2 that people are using. At least in terms of focus for the project. For the product itself, I would prefer for it to be usable directly. But I just don't like too much decentralization anymore of being, okay, everything is being developed on Hydra, and the infrastructure is built for Hydra, is for Hydra. Infrastructure is built for ZK Fold, is for ZK Fold, and so on.
Interoperability, and it's a topic which just comes back, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're running out of time now, but I would suggest continuing this discussion, and maybe you guys just take that thought maybe with you. I mean, I hope I see some of you back here again in about 2 weeks' time, or maybe we can have some conversation about this. And there's this Hydra working group channel now in the Intersect, the Discord server, I believe. And
just to sort of emphasize a couple of timelines, the initial sort of very early stage submission is end of this week. So any sort of input within this week would be great, sort of broad direction kind of scope. The kind of pens down, do the pitch is, from what I've heard, end of September. That's sort of the timeline for when we should really have something that is, fully vetted and aligned and everyone's sort of, in agreement. So it's not a tremendous timeline, but there is a bit of time.
yeah, that's good. Just to be clear, right? For this week is really just something Hydra, okay. Really get started this scoping, road mapping at Intersect, right? So we just kind of reached out to the working groups yesterday or like on Monday. That's it. And it's just collecting topics now. Now basically everybody just comes around the corner and says, yeah, I want to build Genesis, I want to build this, I want to build the LSM or whatever here. I built Metro here this way, right? And the question is, I mean, or we use the Hydra mandate there, or not even mandate, right? Proposal for this. And I'm very free and open-minded in terms of it does not need to be a state channel, just V2, right? I mean, in a way, what we have is usable and can be used, but it's not the solution for everything. And just be aware of that. But thanks for the input so far. Might do a bit of a discussion, lightning or not lightning, or roll up or not roll up a bit in the working group channel or here or there, or on Twitter. Let's see. And so much thanks everyone, and see you around, and hopefully on the next occasion.
Nice to meet everyone, and yeah, thanks for. Go ahead.
Sorry, wrong button.
Yeah. That's the applause, the loud applause.
Hey, Tudor's there.
Yeah, Tudor's there too.
Sorry, I didn't see you before now.
That's why I'm throwing the emojis, so to be seen by everyone.
Yeah. Okay. See you around.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.